Chapter 7 was the wrong choice for Mark, and he almost filed it anyway. He had 3 months of IRS notices stacked on top of his credit card statements. And as far as he was concerned, Chapter 7 versus Chapter 13 bankruptcy wasn't a real question. Chapter 7 was obvious. 4 months and it's done. Debt gone, IRS problem gone. None of that was true. Here's the part most people don't know. A meaningful share of people who filed Chapter 7 would have been better served by Chapter 13. And when IRS debt is in the picture, the math flips in ways even attorneys miss when they're not watching for it. The fast choice can leave your tax debt completely intact, protected from discharge by rules that most filers never hear until it's too late. The factors that actually drive this decision are different from what most people assume. We're going to walk through all of them, including what changes the moment the IRS is also in the room. Details changed to protect privacy, but Mark's situation is one I see regularly. Chapter 7 is what most people picture when they hear the word bankruptcy. It's liquidation bankruptcy. You file, a court-appointed trustee reviews your assets, and the bulk of your unsecured debt, including credit cards, medical bills, and personal loans, get discharged. In Washington state, the process from filing to discharge typically runs 3 to 4 months. For someone genuinely buried under debt they can never realistically repay and who doesn't have major assets at risk. Chapter 7 is often the cleanest and fastest path to a fresh start. To qualify, you have to pass what's called the means test. Your household income needs to fall below Washington state's median income threshold, or you need to show that after your allowable monthly expenses, you don't have enough disposable income to make meaningful payments to creditors. As of early 2026, those thresholds run approximately $86,000 for a single person household and around $152,000 for a family of 4. These figures adjust periodically. If you come in above the threshold, a more detailed expense calculation follows. If the numbers still don't work, Chapter 7 is off the table, period. The question I hear almost every time from Chapter 7 candidates is, will I lose everything? In my experience, most clients in Pierce County don't lose anything that matters. Washington state exemptions protect your homestead equity, and under a 2021 change to the law, the homestead exemption is now the greater of $525,000 or the median sale price of a single family home in your county from the prior year. Your vehicle, household goods, tools of the trade, and retirement accounts are typically fully shielded as well. For most people, those exemptions cover what's meaningful. Where exposure exists is when you have significant equity above those thresholds, investment property, or other exempt assets. A Chapter 7 trustee has the authority to liquidate non-exempt property to pay creditors. Chapter 13 is reorganization, not liquidation. Instead of discharging debt all at once, you propose a 3 to 5 year repayment plan to the court. You pay back some portion of what you owe. How much depends on your income, your allowable expenses, and the types of debt involved. When you successfully complete the plan, the remaining eligible unsecured debt is discharged. The timeline is longer than Chapter 7, 3 years if your income falls below the state median, 5 years if it's above. But Chapter 13 does something Chapter 7 fundamentally cannot do. And for a lot of people, that one thing decides everything. If you're behind on your mortgage and facing foreclosure, Chapter 13 is often the only option that saves the house. The moment you file, the automatic stay kicks in. It stops the foreclosure cold. Your repayment plan then allows you to catch up on the missed payments, the arrears over the course of the plan, while keeping the mortgage current going forward. At the end, you're caught up and you keep the house. Chapter 7 has no mechanism for this. There's no way to restructure or catch up on secured debt through it. If the house is the priority, Chapter 13 is the answer. And if you want to understand everything, the automatic stay stops the moment you file. We cover that in another video in this series. The income requirements for Chapter 13 are also different. There's no means test. What you need is regular income, whether wages, self-employment, Social Security, or pension, sufficient to fund a repayment plan. This makes Chapter 13 accessible to people who earn too much to qualify for Chapter 7. I've worked with clients who made good money but were underwater on a mortgage and buried in consumer debt. Chapter 7 wasn't available to them. Chapter 13 was, and it saved the home. Let me ask you something and drop your answer in the comments. I'm genuinely curious. Is the pressure you're under right now coming primarily from a mortgage you're behind on, or is it credit cards, medical bill, and unsecured debt? That one piece of information practically tells me which direction you're heading before we even look at the numbers. Here's how I frame the decision for clients. What are you trying to save? If the answer is nothing and you just want out from under the debt and your income qualifies, Chapter 7 is almost always the faster and cleaner path. You're done in 3 months and you move forward. If the answer is your house, we're talking Chapter 13. If you have assets the Washington exemptions don't fully cover and you don't want a trustee anywhere near them, Chapter 7 carries real risk. Chapter 13 requires no liquidation. You fund a plan, complete it, and everything stays. Debt type matters more than most people realize. Both chapters handle credit cards and medical bills effectively. But IRS tax debt, certain older student loan debt, or domestic support obligations vary significantly depending on which chapter you file. Not all debt responds the same way inside bankruptcy, and making assumptions here is where people get hurt. If you have IRS tax debt in the mix, this is exactly where having an attorney who handles both tax law and bankruptcy becomes relevant. Some older IRS income tax debt can actually be discharged in Chapter 7 bankruptcy, but only if very specific conditions are met. The return has to have been filed more than 2 years before you file for bankruptcy. The debt itself has to be more than 3 years old from the original due date. The IRS also had to have assessed the debt at least 240 days before you file. That's the third condition most people miss. And there are additional criteria beyond that. We broke down exactly how this works in our video on the 3-year rule. That's V2 on this channel, and if you have any IRS debt at all, watch that before you make any decision here. In Chapter 13, IRS tax debt that doesn't qualify for discharge gets treated as a priority claim inside your repayment plan. Priority means the IRS gets paid ahead of your credit cards and medical bills. That might sound worse on the surface, but compare it to the alternative. On your own, outside of bankruptcy, the IRS is garnishing wages, levying bank accounts, and charging interest and penalties every single day. Inside Chapter 13, all of that stops the moment you file. The IRS gets paid, but on a structure the court approved, not on the IRS's unilateral terms. Here's the trap I see people fall into. They try to handle the IRS debt and other debt on separate tracks. They call the IRS, set up a payment plan, start making payments, and then a few months later, they're filing bankruptcy anyway for the credit cards. Now they've made preferential payments to a creditor in the months leading up to the filing, and that creates complications in the bankruptcy case. It's not always a disaster, but it's avoidable. If there is any chance bankruptcy is coming, tell your attorney about everything. The IRS, the credit cards, the mortgage, before you take any action of any kind. The right sequence matters. If you have IRS tax debt alongside other debt, the video you need to watch next is V2, the 3-year rule. That's where I break down whether that tax debt can be discharged in bankruptcy and what conditions have to be met. Link is in the description. If you're ready to talk through your specific situation, call Sterbick Law at 253-383-0140 or visit sterbick.com. We're in Tacoma, and drop your answer in the comments. Is it in the house or is it in the credit card debt that's driving this? That one answer matters more than you might think.